The Cavs blew it. So a couple weeks ago, I dropped a video on this channel, and the video was called The NBA's Most Underrated Team. And in that video, I was talking about how I thought the Cleveland Cavs were going to be contenders in this year's NBA playoffs, and I really thought they were going to go on a run. I could not have been farther away from reality in that video because the Cavs just lost in the first round to the Knicks in 5 games. They didn't even really put up that much of a fight. Before we get into why I was wrong about the Cavs, make sure you guys go down below, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, subscribe to ENC Basketball, and leave a comment down below what you think about the Cavs or what you think about the New York Knicks. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So one of the main points that I made in that video previously is that I thought that the Cavs were going to be really good in this year's playoffs because they had a true one go-to guy, and that's Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell had a great year this season on the Cavs, his first year on the Cavs, by the way, and he was a 28-point scorer this season, had a great year, and I thought that since Donovan Mitchell, because historically Donovan Mitchell has been a player that when we get into the playoffs, he kicks his game into a different gear, and he has these crazy playoff performances where you're watching Donovan Mitchell and you're like, oh my gosh, this guy is a great scorer, and he can really just kick his game onto a different level once we hit the playoffs. So we've seen a few great playoff performances in Donovan Mitchell's career so far. The first one that obviously comes to mind is in the bubble in 2020, that series against the Nuggets where it felt like him and Jamal Murray were just going back and forth, putting up these crazy games. I think Donovan Mitchell put up 50 in a game that series. And so historically, Mitchell has just been a guy who really gets his game going even more in the playoffs. And in this series, let me give credit to the New York Knicks because in this series, Donovan Mitchell only averaged 22 points. When this season, he would have been a 28-point scorer on the average. Not only did the Knicks keep Donovan Mitchell from not exploding, they actually dropped his game and they made him a worse player to the point where he underperformed in this playoff series. And again, I want to give a big shout out to the Knicks defense because the Knicks all season have been a really gritty and just tough team to play against. And they really got the Cavs and specifically Donovan Mitchell out of a rhythm in this series. And I feel like Donovan Mitchell is a real rhythm player, and they just really kept him from getting out of a rhythm in this series. And it got to a point where the Cavs, eventually I felt like they got so reliant on Donovan Mitchell carrying the offensive load that, like I said, when he got out of a rhythm, the entire offense just got out of a rhythm and it got pretty stagnant. And there was a couple points in this series that really stood out to me when Caris LeVert, in my other video, actually this is a little side tangent, but in my other video, I said that Caris LeVert is a player that when he's on, he's really good. When he's making his shots, he's a really good player. But when he's not making his shots, he's just, it's sometimes a tough watch because he can be inefficient at times. And it got to a point in this series where the offense was just so out of rhythm that they had to lean on Caris LeVert. And Caris LeVert, although he did make some tough shots, he was taking a lot of tough shots. And when Caris LeVert is having to take on such an offensive load for this team, it's just not a good sign. And it got to a point where Caris LeVert was taking some really ugly shots. And I also want to give a big shout out to Jalen Brunson because I was coming into the series thinking that Donovan Mitchell was going to be the best player in the series, and I was totally wrong. It was Jalen Brunson, ladies and gentlemen. Jalen Brunson had a great year this season, and coming into the series, by no means was I trying to disrespect or downplay Jalen Brunson, but I just didn't think that he was going to establish himself as the best player in the series, and that's exactly what he did. He averaged 24 points per game for the Knicks in this series, and he really was the offensive force that they needed to keep this team establishing themselves against the Cavs. And another one of the main reasons why I was talking about the Cavs so highly in that previous video is because of Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. They're two twin towers in the front court. I was expecting Allen and Mobley to really establish themselves defensively and especially on the offensive and defensive glass, rebounding the ball. The Cavs throughout the entire season were the #1 defense in the NBA, and I was expecting this series to be really hard for the Knicks because of that reason. I thought the Cavs defense was really going to stifle the Knicks, and what I thought was going to happen was that Julius Randle was not going to be able to be successful in this series against these two big men, which to a certain extent he kind of was. Randle only averaged 14 points per game in this series, and so to a certain extent, I was right. But what I thought was then going to happen was that it was going to force Jalen Brunson and the other guys on the Knicks to have to step up. And I just wasn't sure if they were capable of doing that against a defense as stifling as the Cavs had been. But I was wrong. Like I said, Jalen Brunson performed very well. They had a couple games in this series where RJ Barrett was scoring the ball really well. There were some bright spots out of Obi Toppin, and the rest of the Knicks supporting cast really stepped up and propelled themselves over the Cavs. Another player I want to highlight from the Knicks is Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson, ladies and gentlemen. As I previously said, the front court of the Cavs I thought was going to be able to establish themselves on the glass and really out-rebound the Knicks. The Knicks actually out-rebounded the Cavs in 4 out of the 5 games in this series, and that's in large part to Mitchell Robinson. He had a game where I think he had 18 rebounds in a game. He had like 11 offensive rebounds in that same game, and Mitchell Robinson averaged 10 rebounds per game in this series. It was actually 9.9 rebounds, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say it was 10 rebounds. And the center that he was going against in the center versus center matchup was Jarrett Allen, the Fro. Jarrett Allen. This man had a terrible series, in my opinion. I think that Jarrett Allen really just didn't really show up in these playoffs. And he actually only averaged 6.6 rebounds per game in this series. And it felt like every single game of this series, he was getting dominated by Mitchell Robinson. On the glass, on the offensive glass, just really did not really perform up to his standards in this series. And what I think it came down to was the real grit and grind and physicality of the Knicks team, because every single game after the game in the post-game pressers, the Cavs were talking about how the Knicks were playing more physical than them and about how the Cavs needed to step up their physicality. And that did really play a toll in this series because, like I said, once the Cavs offense got out of a rhythm, it wasn't pretty. And I think that the Knicks' physicality and real gritty nature of this team really propelled them past the Cavs in this series to the point where the Cavs' defense and offense just didn't look like themselves. And it was a true disappointing series for the Cavs. They even had a game where the Cavs didn't even score 80 points. 80 points, ladies and gentlemen. Look at me. 80 points. And that was actually the lowest that any team in the NBA all season had scored this year. And so that shows how much of a disappointing series it was. And so moving on in the playoffs is the New York Knicks. They're going to move on to play the Miami Heat. And I think they have a real solid chance in that series. And congratulations to the New York Knicks, because I think this is the first series that they've won in I don't know how many years, but it's been a while. And the Knicks fans deserve it. New York fans are one of the most dedicated fans in sports. So good luck to the Knicks. And I was super wrong about the Cavs. I really thought that they were going to make relatively easy work of the Knicks, and I was just wrong. So I want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you guys go down below, hit the like button, subscribe to ENT Basketball, smash that subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. It'll really truly mean a lot to me if you guys like and subscribe to this channel. And leave a comment down below about the Cavs or about the Knicks. Actually, what's your prediction for the Knicks versus Heat series? Leave it down below. Who's going to win and in how many games? And thank you guys so much. I'm out of here.